Hi, thank you for watching my video again. So I want to talk about EMDR. EMDR, I'm not a therapist or anything or a specialist. I don't have much knowledge truly, but it was designed to help uh, Vietnam War veterans who are suffering with the PTSD, and that was discovered by Dr. Shapiro in Seattle in 1980s. And I've heard of this method to overcome PTSD through two friends of mine who also suffered by abuse and had a counselor who did the EMDR with them. And they are basically saying a lot of times that talking with the counselor kind of helps, but the EMDR is more effective. So I googled the EMDR therapist, and I found this person, Nancy Settling, in Boston, and then she specialized for the EMDR. There's actually a lot of EMDR counselors, I think, throughout United States, that if you Google EMDR, it's all uppercase EMDR therapist or counselor, certified EMDR counselor. A lot of people will come up, and I would highly recommend, because I feel like going to see a counselor every week for about 6 years. If I knew EMDR, my condition, the PTSD, gotten better faster. So it wasn't like maybe waste of my time, but I wished that I knew EMDR earlier, when I started going to see a counselor. So if you feel like you're suffering with PTSD or trauma, I would highly recommend to find EMDR certified therapist to see EMDR, to do the EMDR session. So what EMDR does is, they usually use the light that goes right left, and then you follow the light, so that while you're following the light movement, with right left consistent movement, then the counselor would ask, what's the worst experience in your life, worst trauma that you can think of. So you pinpoint that worst trauma while you're following the light movement, and you would basically dig into your memory from it, and you start to think about, you don't talk about it, but you basically think about that episode, the worst trauma of your life. And then after about maybe a couple minutes, then counselor would ask what happened, what kind of things that you remembered, and then you start to see it as a kind of a movie that you explain to the counselor, and that's kind of the session. But my counselor used buds. It was like a vibrator that you hold it, and then it goes boo 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 boo, like right left, and then while getting the stimulation, then she asked me what's my worst experience of the sexual abuse. So it was really difficult, but after that, basically she would guide through what happened, and then what kind of thought that came up with. So that's really the EMDR session. You can definitely look it up on Google and then research about EMDR if you're more curious about it. But my counselor basically had this model of brain, and then she cut it. She had a model that's the brain is cut half, and then she was showing the primitive part of brain that where the trauma is stored, and the cognitive part of the brain that you can function. So she was basically explaining to me about, if you get in a car accident, what if your car start to burn, then you don't think about, oh, I forgot my iPhone, I forgot like my wallet, or blah blah blah. So your cognitive part of brain shuts off completely if you take a temperature, it's black, and then the primitive part of your brain is red, so it fires up, and then the cognitive part doesn't work anymore. So that's what fight and flight, kind of got animalistic, your instinctive part of the brain that shuts off everything. And that's what happens when the trauma reaction happens, like flashback. So when somebody's, for instance, my case is when men are yelling at me, that that automatically fire up my primitive part of the brain, then my cognitive part shuts off. So during the sleep, there's REM swimming, that where your eyes are going right and left and right and left when some negative event of that day, they are trying to store in the cognitive part of the brain. So you are trying to, with the EMDR stimulation, you're basically trying to basically do the same process when you are sleeping while you're awake, to bring the trauma that's stored in the primitive part of the brain to the cognitive part of the brain, so that you can comprehend what really happened. So next time something triggers your brain, then it doesn't shut off, the cognitive part doesn't shut off completely to the black. And so that's kind of the concept. So to me, a few sessions doing EMDR was very, very helpful.